I apologize in advance for the dogs barking. Not sure who's outside, but someone's outside.
Well, just tell the group that they're coyotes. It'll add to the fun of the evening. So looks like you, Kellen, will be working for the scenic area. Maybe you're going to be in Hood River.
Sweet. I'm going to go ahead and pull up my slides here. And we can get started. And I'm sure people will be kind of rolling in as well as we go on. So let me introduce myself. I'm Willa Michaels. I am the Community Outreach Coordinator for the Oregon City Watershed Council. So I'll be your moderator tonight. And before we get started, let me just introduce our team. So first we have Tom Gaskill. Tom, if you want to wave or say hello, he is our Executive Director.
Hello.
And we have Derek Pumwar. He is our Stewardship Involvement Coordinator. Both Derek and I are serving as AmeriCorps members through Confluence Environmental Center. And we've had a lot of fun these last few months kind of putting these talks together. So I want to go ahead and kind of give you an introduction to the Greater Oregon City Watershed Council. And my notes are going to fall down. So we started in 2004, and we are comprised of a dedicated core of volunteer board members. So we've been working in the Greater Oregon City watersheds for almost 2 decades, which is a long time. So this is kind of a map of the area that we work in. So we conduct habitat restoration, invasive species removal, technical assistance, education, outreach, and stakeholder engagement. We do this through the support of the community and also through some grants. So tonight's program is supported by the Community Enhancement Grant provided by our partners at the City of Oregon City and Metro. And most importantly, thank you all for being here tonight. We're really excited. And oh, that slipped. Okay, my slides skipped all the way to the end, but either way, I'd like to introduce our presenter for tonight. I had the pleasure of working with Bill Weiler at Sandy River Watershed Council this past year, and I know he's going to give a great presentation tonight. Bill is a local wildlife biologist who's lived in the Columbia River Gorge for the past 30 years. He's the founder of the Columbia Gorge Ecology Institute and has worked both for the Washington and Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife. With that said, I'm going to stop sharing, and Bill, if you'd like to start sharing and get us started.
Let's see here. I don't, oh, there it is. You all see it?
Yep, looks good.
Yes.
Okay, let's see. I guess I can start it from the beginning. Current slide from the beginning. Okay, thank you so much. Really appreciate the invitation from Willow, Tom, and Derek. I just, as Willow said, have been a habitat biologist for years with both departments, and now I do wildlife surveys and also wildlife habitat assessments. So you're welcome to contact me at any time in terms of questions you might have later on. I'm always happy to go visit folks' properties or schools or natural areas just to give my 2 cents worth. And there I am at the bottom, the land at gorge.net. Happy Earth Month. So we're going to talk about magical wildlife. So amazing, it's hard to believe they actually exist. Magnificent wildlife, which is pretty much all the species in the Oregon City watershed, and followed by your comments and questions. First of all, we might wonder about whether this is a brown or black bear. How's that for a first question? You might say this is the stupidest question ever. It is a brown bear, but it's actually a black bear that's just brown. Okay, let's have the animal kingdom quiz. So we'll make sure we're all on the same page. Here we go to question number 1. Where do most bats live in Oregon City or the general area? And you might say people's homes or sheds or roofs, and that would be correct. But in the general woodlands, in the suburban, rural, wilder areas, where do you think we find bats? And the answer is not caves. I don't know, Will or Tom or Derek or Alexis or anybody else, whether you have lots of caves in Oregon City. We don't have any hardly out here. So the answer is in trees. They live under the bark of trees, of course, in the hollows of trees, and they're always going to be faced with their head down so they can just take off. They don't have to back out into the wind and to the air. So that's where bats like to hang out, to roost, to nest. And whether you like bats or not, they provide really incredible free ecological services. They will eat upwards, one bat, 3,000 mosquitoes or moths at night. All of the bats in Oregon and Washington are insect eaters. So thank you, bats, for being there. Question number 2 will be about turtles. We only have 2 native turtle species in Oregon and the Oregon City area, where the western pond turtle above is a very flat, kind of flattish type of a shell, has a kind of a prehistoric looking head. I think the painted turtle is aptly named. It's just painted in tattoos from head to shell. So, well, I don't know if the pictures of folks are covering this question, but what is the main threat to turtles in Oregon City's lakes, streams, and rivers? What is the main threat? Obviously, habitat loss is not good. But this is where Willow, you cue a song you may not know about. It's called Jeremiah Was a Bullfrog. Bullfrogs are incredible purveyors. They love to eat baby turtles, and they are the biggest threat that we have. So getting rid of bullfrogs is a number 1 priority in turtle areas, because almost in every turtle area you do find the bullfrogs. Question number 3. What are urban coyotes' 2 main prey items? A friend of mine did his PhD work in Seattle. I think this probably applies to Portland, Oregon City, the metro area as well. The 2 main prey items for coyotes in urban areas are apples. Interesting. Apples and fruit. And so early in the slideshow, apples and cats. Sorry. Who leads an elk herd? Imagine I don't know if you have elk in Oregon City proper, but the elk come to strange places. I was at the beach recently and they were walking down the beach, a whole herd of elk. Who leads an elk herd? Is it that big bull elk you see with the antlers? Is it the young? Is it the teenagers? Who leads an elk herd? No, it's not that person, not that one. It's the elderly females. It is the older, wiser females that lead an elk herd to and from their winter grounds lower down in elevation, and they migrate up the hills to wetlands for breeding and so forth in the summertime. What bird builds the largest nest on the planet? The largest bird nest on the planet, added to some years. This is the largest of the largest in Florida. The answer is bald eagles. Bald eagles build the largest nest of any bird. Pretty cool. If you're not doing anything next, end of January, February, come out to the Dalles. The Dalles Dam is one of the largest concentrations of eagles in Oregon. We had, I think, a maximum of 141 year. And of course, you can see the juvenile birds without the white feathers, which they don't gain until they're 5 years old. And this will determine whether I come back again. If you say no to this question, I hope you all raise your hand and say, does Bigfoot exist? And the answer, of course, is we hope yes. And one of the reasons I think this is true is because we have grizzly bears in the state of Washington, but no one has ever seen them. Well, how's that possible? How can you not see a grizzly bear? Well, animals know their habitat better than anything else. And just like if we played hide and go seek, If we played at my house, you'd never find me. If we played at Willow's house, we'd never find Willow. I mean, we know our own place. So I really hope, besides Harry and the Hendersons, that movie showed that they do exist. The reason I'm in wildlife biology is because I was outdoors as a young kid, and at age 8, I came across a red fox. And at that point, I said I was going to become a wildlife biologist. And about 25 years later, I finally became one. Written a few books. This is The Earth Speaks. There's actually other people's writing that I put together. And Don't Run from Bears. I to this day don't understand why, if you want to present this slide of the cover, they don't show the bears on the cover, which is the way it really is. So that's one of the profound mysteries of the universe. All right, here you're looking at 5 animals that if I were to ask you which is the most dangerous animal to humans, some of these might come to your mind. But only one of them is the most dangerous. In fact, it kills and injures more people than all the others and all the others and all the others combined. Not only in Oregon City, not only in Oregon, Washington, but the entire nation. Let's find out what animal that is. Yes, it's not even close. It's not even close. It is deer. Now, while a couple of deer were actually hurt and kill people if they're being hunted or bothered, the main deal, of course, is automobile crashes. And you can raise your hand, even though I can't see you, if you've ever known anybody, including yourself, that has hit a deer. Very common. Especially during the October season, you can see herds of deer crossing the road, and it's never a good deal. When you see this sign, which actually you can probably put up almost anywhere, you got to be really careful. So what do you do? What do you do to try not to come away with a bad accident, damage to your car, damage to yourself or your passengers? And the answer is this. If you see a herd of deer or one deer crossing the road, you might think that there might be others, and that's a good guess. Slow down. You don't want to stop necessarily, especially in all the curvy roads that you guys have and I have in the gorge, because if you stop, there might be a truck or car coming behind you that didn't know you stopped, especially at night. This one, people don't really like, number 2, but go straight toward the animal. Never, ever swerve. A lot of the accidents occur without even hitting the deer, but people swerve into rivers, into oncoming traffic. And so that if you swerve, usually bad things happen. I found, though, it's not been tested, scientifically to honk your horn, and again, expect more than one deer. So slow down, do not swerve, expect more than one. The northern goshawk is your largest forest raptor, your biggest bird of prey. And I've done surveys for them. And they're very protected, the females, of their young. If you ever hear a sound that even sounds anything like this, it's time to figure out where that sound comes from and walk or run the other direction, because this bird is coming for you. I will never forget, I was looking at this similar scene in the binoculars, and all of a sudden I noticed the bird flying straight at me, and all these guys that were with me, we all jumped into the woods. We were lucky that day. This guy was not. It's really a bird not to mess with. Doesn't really kill anybody, so it's not really a menacing animal. Bears. A lot of people say bears are problematic, and people are injured by bears every year, especially if there are cubs. If you remember, I wrote this book called Don't Run from Bears. And so I was surveying for squirrels in Wasco County in the Dalles. And I heard a loud noise, and I looked up and I said, oh my gosh, there's a bear with 2 cubs. And I was so excited and asked my friend to come and take a picture. But in the meanwhile, the mother bear was climbing down the tree. So who do you think the mother bear was interested in saying hello to as she climbed down the tree? It was myself and my friend. So I did write a book called Don't Run from Bears. But in this case, we walked away from the bears as fast as we could. Bears can run as fast as horses for a short distance. So you really you want to back up if you see something like this and say goodbye to them. Rattlesnakes, you don't have those. I don't think in Oregon State. I can be proven wrong. Maybe they are moving west. As the temperatures warm up, but rattlesnakes get a bad rap. It's almost impossible to be killed by a rattlesnake if you are an adult. They just don't have much venom. In fact, 1 out of every 5 times they don't even bite with venom, because they know a human is not a rat or a prey item, so they're not going to put much venom at all into it. If you do get bitten by a rattlesnake, as I have been, what you want to do is you want to try to stay calm And you don't want to suck it out. I was taught that in my advanced first aid class years ago. You don't want to suck out the venom because then you have it not only in the blood system, but in your digestive system. Find a place that has an antivenom, which is almost any clinic or hospital in the Northwest, and you will be just fine. And that leaves mountain lions, which is usually number one answer when I ask who's the most dangerous animal in the Oregon City, Greater Portland, the country for that matter. But remember what is the most dangerous animal, and that's the deer. And the female mountain lions just eat deer pretty much. So if that's the case, then this animal is doing a pretty good job of helping us, especially if you have a teenage, if you have a child that is now learning how to drive or so forth, you're not going to hit a mountain lion on the road more than likely you're going to hit a deer. This is the most important animal in the ecosystem in Oregon City, in the Northwest, and I said most of the country. Why is that? Let's see if the slides show that later. Yeah, here it is. One study in the Rocky Mountain area found that about 75 species depended on mountain lion kills for survival, especially in wintertime. You won't believe the animals that are dependent. I mean, things like mice and squirrels, and of course the raptors, bears, any scavenger. But this is a really important animal. When a mountain lion kills a deer, let's say, it'll partially bury it and it'll come back to feed on it. But it does not like rancid food. Bears do like rancid food, by the way. And so the mountain lion will only be there a few days and gone. And then there's this whole a lot of the animal that is still left for eating. So this is a keystone of the keystone species. And we need to think about that, because anytime a mountain lion shows up, whether it's even true or not, all the news, outlets are talking about dangers. Keep your kids indoors and stuff. But let me tell you this true story. When I worked for the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife, we radio tracked 25 mountain lions with the help of high school students. Imagine the parent, permission form for that. We had the high school students taking measurements of mountain lions that we'd anesthetized, put to sleep for a little while, and then they woke up and followed them. And of those 25 mountain lions, if my right hand are the mountain lions and my left hand is the city near Seattle where we did this work, all of the mountain lions stayed away from people except one. Now, why did that mountain lion hang out at somebody's house? Because that person was feeding deer. Don't feed deer. It's bad for the deer and bad for the mountain lions too. Here's a radio track mountain lion. Here's a coyote already, it looks like, in the background, waiting for the mountain lion to leave so they can enjoy the food. Let's talk about two of the most important wildlife habitats in the Oregon City watershed. This one really is not even arguably, it really is the most important tree for wildlife. Again, not only locally, but in the entire country. It used to be elm or chestnut, but it is the oak. And this is the Oregon white oak. I don't know if you have other oak species in Oregon City and Washington. We only have the Oregon white oak, and I think this may be the only native one. Why is this tree the most important tree for wildlife? These two reasons here: acorns, an incredible protein, fat, carbohydrate rich source. Sometimes one tree can produce, it seems like, millions of them. So this is a really important food for just dozens of species, especially in winter, when animals are trying to dig through the snow perhaps, or there's not much food in the area. Just an incredible source of food. Another thing that Oregon white oaks have a tendency to do is self-prune. During a windstorm like we've had recently, snowstorm, ice storm, the branches just fall off. And when the branches fall off, rot sets in. And when rot sets in, holes occur, or cavities. And you may probably know many species of wildlife utilize cavities or holes for part or all of their life phases. So if Oregon white oak is around, that's a really important tree to conserve. I know you, just like us here in the gorge, had many more in the past. I know a lot of folks are trying to restore them to their full glory again. Species you may have, we only have them in the Lisle area of Washington State. In Washington, the acorn woodpecker is perfectly suited name. You can see what they do with their acorns. They save them for future use. This is a pretty easy bird to spot because of the red, white, and black. And they have a diabolical laugh. I should have had a call for you to hear, but they're one of the obviously many species that depends on Oregon white oaks. And the other one, where is he hiding? Oh, here he is. This is my friend Renwick, the squirrel, so named by the students of Hood River Junior High School. It's a western gray squirrel. It's one of the largest squirrels in the country, and it really is, again, a keystone species for white oak and oaks because it buries the acorns and then forgets where they are. And it's totally dependent on oak for nesting and for food. Let's see if we can see a picture, one better than mine. There it is. It's a big squirrel. It's just gray and white, black. It's got a huge, huge tail. They're shy, and they have a raspy voice, so not the most pleasant of squirrels. They do get outcompeted by other squirrel species that have moved into the area. In Oregon, you can hunt them, which is strange to me. You can have 5 a season. In Washington, they are state threatened. This is a western gray squirrel nest. If you're ever in Washington, oh yeah, I guess Oregon too, and you see something like this, it's a huge nest. It's basketball size or bigger, almost always against the bole or trunk of the tree. It's made by a lot of different needles and sticks and all sorts of stuff they could cobble together. They build on them every year. And usually if you see one, you see more. And if you see this, at least in Washington, this is the protective conservation measure. If you see the squirrels, doesn't make any difference. If you see oaks, doesn't make any difference. But if you see a western gray squirrel nest, should be reported to the Oregon or Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife, and then they usually will protect them. I think this is one of your parks in Oregon City. And so this has forest habitats are really, really important for hundreds and hundreds of species. And I think, you know, if done right, and we talked about this prior to going on live here, you know, recreation and wildlife can go hand, especially if you have like seasonal restrictions or even, you know, if you see a bird nesting, close it down for a little bit. And here's the bird we're thinking of that loves this type of habitat, especially snags or dead trees, wildlife reserve trees. You know, there's more life in a dead tree than there is in a live tree. Much more life in a dead tree because the tree doesn't have its defenses anymore. It's chemical, biological defenses. Dead tree, obviously, you know, it's all cumbers, you know, the diseases and insects and so forth. And pileated woodpeckers is a keystone species. It's the mayor of the forest. It makes large homes and holes, which can accommodate the larger, you know, wildlife species. No other species like it. If you're my age or so, it's a woody woodpecker bird. You can't mistake it for anything else. It cackles and calls when it flies. And it really is focused on one thing kind of in the tree, and that's termites. So that's a good thing too. You'll see huge holes in trees. It looks like a jackhammer has hit them. One of the many cool things about this bird is its tongue is enormous. It's enormous. It goes behind its eye and its skull. And notice in the top picture that it's barbed. So it comes out like one of those things at New Year's time, you know, Happy New Year, everybody. And then when the barb hits the termite's toast. So it's a pretty amazing adaptation. Of course, its head is like a chisel that can knock against wood. It does like the softer wood. Okay, we come to coyotes next. Put on my coyote hat for you here. So obviously this is not Oregon City, but I just like the picture. I mean, it shows that the coyotes, they're adaptable. They can live anywhere. We already learned that like cats and oh, police guy. I thought he was going to come in here. Good. Cats and apples and so forth, but they pretty much will eat anything. And so here's, I think, a picture of Oregon City. And so coyotes have come into Oregon City like every place else because they're all cats. Some people may have apple trees, and it's easy pickings. So the lesson for people that don't like coyotes, maybe you've had a small dog or cat that you think has been eaten by one, or chickens or something else, is, and this is Mr. Coyote speaking, and he's going to say, listen, if you don't like coyotes, whatever you do, don't shoot me. And that's what does that mean? If you don't like coyotes, you know, you'd be tempted to shoot one. But what the coyotes have done and why they're so successful as a species is they breed more. They have more pups. So if you shoot coyotes, especially in a nice area, the guards are going to move in, and then they're going to have more, they're going to hire amount of pups in the litter. So you might think about that. I think they're amazing adaptive animals. And if you keep your pets in at night, you can hear them howl. And I think they're a great part of the landscape. Sorry, I think pictures of me are in this, so you can't see all the coyote picture maybe. But yeah, we don't have wolves here yet. And yet is underlined, big capital letters. There's a difference between a wolf and a coyote. If you see a wild dog, first thing to notice if it's running is its tail. If it's straight or up, it's going to be a wolf. If it's kind of between its legs, it's a coyote. And here's some other characteristics. Wolves are usually bigger, more rounded heads. Wolves are more pack animals, shorter ears. The closest wolf to Oregon City is, besides maybe the Oregon Zoo, is Mount Hood. Mount Hood. These pictures were taken now, I think 5 years ago on Mount Hood. First time wolves had been there in years. I should take off my coyote hat since we're talking about wolves now. And since then, they made an interesting choice. They moved on to the Warm Springs Indian Reservation. And the Fish and Wildlife people tell me that's a very interesting place to be because the amount of food of big game and so forth is limited there. But the reservation is a very quiet place. And so they surmise, which I've never heard of before, but I think it has merit, that they're in the Warm Springs Reservation because they're seeking solitude and not being hassled by people. The second most important habitat or maybe the most important, called the Oaks, the second, is the riparian areas. And you're blessed to have a number. You have the second largest river in the state, the Willamette, and incredible falls, which is, by the way, the 7th or 6th widest falls in the country. So it's a pretty incredible piece of nature. You also have Abernathy Creek and Beaver Creek, and I guess Newell Creek as well. These are magnets for wildlife. About 85 to 90% of all wildlife species will spend time in these areas at different times of the day. I think my favorite animal of the riparian zone is the water ouzel. It was John Muir's favorite bird. It's also called the dipper because it has this very interesting habit. Talk about working out all the time. It just dips and dips and dips and dips. It is a water bird par excellence. When it hunts for insects under the water, its eyes become like goggles, so we can see underneath there. And the coolest thing of all is the next slide. They will usually build their nest where water spray hits the eggs and the young. So they get them going at a very early age. You know, sometimes we want to have our kids swim at an early age, but nothing compared to the water ouzel or dipper. And then, of course, we have sea otters oh, no, sorry. We don't, and I don't think we will any day, but anyhow, I think they're so cute. And we do have river otters, though. And I wasn't sure about this one, if this is the giant one of South America or not, but I thought it was a great picture. River otters are just an amazing aquatic animal, one of the largest members of the weasel family. They really are kind of floppy on land. One showed up in my house, in the backyard, and I'm about 5 miles from a river, so they will go a long way to migrate. But when they get in the water, they always win the gold medal for synchronized swimming and dancing. Pretty amazing. And then the beaver, of course. You see Oregon State beavers, you got Beaver Creek, you got all sorts of beaver stuff in Oregon City. And this animal is really important for fish. It has gotten a bad rap in the past because it dams up a stream and the stream floods and it's not good. But actually what it does is it behind the dams, it holds water. And as we get drier, and I was told today, last year is one of the driest years on record, and this year too, starting off that way, the water behind a beaver dam impoundment will, like a sponge, will add water to the system and add more water so it doesn't dry up as rapidly as it might, which is obviously a good thing for fish. You might think that beavers live in beaver lodges. I don't think they do in this state. In Alaska, where I used to live, that's where they lived. So they would dig these little stream back holes. And if you see anything that looks like this, it is a beaver. We have tried to, mimic beaver dams, but they're just not like the real thing. When I'm with kids, in fact, if I was with you tonight, I probably would have brought some sticks and leaves and stuff and asked people in the audience to try to make a bird's nest. Oh, using the tweezers, because of course they can't use they don't have hands, and it's really hard to do. And this is really amazing that beaver can do this. So more and more actually beaver are being imported to streams. There's actually a fish hatchery in Washington State that raises beaver, and you can just come on by and say, okay, I got this stream and I would love to have beaver there. Okay, when I went to grad school, I was told that you should really give a talk in less than 27 minutes because that will keep people with you. Anything longer than that, people start fading away. So I have no idea what time it is, but I know I'm approaching that mark. I think I had 40 minutes total, and there was also some introductions. So this part of the show, as we end here, is what you can do for wildlife. And usually when we talk to kids about this, they say pick up litter. Well, that's fine. And we don't want, soda, those plastic things, and some birds get stuck with those. And obviously litter is not good, but we can do much better things with our time. But this is the Sandy River Delta, exit 18 off of Interstate 84 in the Trout area. And over the years, we planted about 1.5 million native trees and shrubs there. And mostly we do that with volunteers. As I was mentioning to the team before the show, we had a first foods planting at the Delta. I think one of the first opportunities for Native American youth to plant foods that are important into traditions of Native American tribes. So that's really the best thing you can do. It's great for climate change, obviously. We've started to plant climate adaptive species. So in the mix here, I don't know if I have a slide, we started to plant ponderosa pine in Troutdale. You might go, that's a silly thing to do, but they've done really well. And if our temperature is going to warm and become drier, ponderosa pine may not be a bad idea. Putting up bird boxes is just a great thing to do. It really is. This is top of the line here. I notice it looks like it's a metal seal here. Got a top you just flip open. And I've got one here too. And bird boxes have really undergone a nice, I guess, improvement through the years. We used to put little perch rods on the front. And then we found out that the animals, the birds in particular, that were perching on that perch would be going in and killing all the birds in the bird box. So the best bird boxes do not have the little wooden dowel, for that now. And bird boxes are good for any species. They're different size to fit the size of the bird. But this is just about perfect here. This looks like a nice sturdy piece. And then maybe you don't know about this, or maybe you do, but bat boxes are really cool too. They have less success than bird boxes. I think they're still being developed. They're flat, and here you can see here, despite this really narrow opening, we've had bats in here by the dozens, and again, they're always faced with their head down. So this can be a nice addition. And remember what bats eat. Upward to 3,000 mosquitoes a night. So this is a nice thing you can do anywhere. And of course, going outdoors is probably the very best, especially kids, youth. Really glad Oregon has a outdoor school for all program. I hope and trust that the Oregon city and suburban kids also partake in this in the spring season. It's been very difficult with COVID here in the Gorge. We've got kids that are out doing outdoor school now. We can have them come overnight to camp this fall, because I think that's where the magic is. So there's nothing like it. It's important, and to be out for multiple days, I think is even better. I mean, the sense of wonder with kids, especially young kids. I like the girl in the middle. Look at this. It's so much fun, and the enthusiasm of the instructor there. Kids need outdoor time. I took my 4-year-old nephew once on a walk, and I'm thinking, okay, this is about a 1/4 mile. I think he can do that. We never got more than 200 feet. So, wow, look at this. It's so much fun. This is the California condor. This is my second to last slide. And you don't have condors in Oregon City, and you don't have them anywhere in Oregon or Washington. They used to be here. Lewis and Clark shot one on Wind Mountain in the Gorge. The Oregon Zoo has been raising them for years. I got to go on a secret tour to see what they do. They have these aversion programs. So if the condor in the zoo lands on a high tensile electric line, it gets a little bit of a shot, and they try to have people puppets and keep them away. So we hope condors are going to return to the Pacific Northwest. It's a very good chance. If I were to give this talk next year, if you would have me to come back, we'd have condors here, because they now have been released on the Oregon-California border on the Yurok Native American tribe. They've been trying for years to do that. So that's very, very exciting. Condors were considered extinct in the wild. All of them were gathered to out of the wild to go into the LA and Portland the zoos. And since then, they're now like 250 to 300 flying again in the Southwest. And we really, really hope that one day you look into the skies, maybe as early as the spring bird count, and you see the largest bird in the United States. We have an interesting relationship with wildlife. We like them at a distance. We love them in a zoo. We hate them when the deer come and eat our flowers and squirrels, and we're a little bit scared if we come across mountain lion or bear. But maybe this quote is something for us to think about. We need another and wiser, more mystical concept of animals, remote from universal nature, living by complicated artifice, and its civilization surveys the creature through the glass of his knowledge, sees thereby a feather magnified in the whole image. Distortion sometimes. Patronize them for their incompleteness, fate of taking so far below ourselves, and there we err. They're not brethren, they are not underlings, they are other nations, caught with ourselves in the net of life and time, fellow prisoners of this splendor and travail of the earth. It's my great hope for all of you that you get to go outside as much as you can during this incredible spring season, and you see lots of animals, if you want from a distance, if not close up as well. Thanks so much for listening this evening, and I would love to hear your stories and any questions and comments.
Oh, thank you so much, Bill. You bring so much energy to the topics. It's so much fun hearing you present.
I hear the coyotes.
I know.
How did you arrange that? That is so
somehow they live in my living room. I don't know how they got there.
Hello, Ann. We hadn't said hello to you guys. Thanks for being here.
Awesome. We have a few questions. Also, if you have any more questions, please feel free to leave them in the chat. Or if you want to raise your hand and talk to Bill directly, totally cool. First, Bill, if I find a non-native turtle, can I take it home?
Great question. I've heard this question before. No, I mean, you can have it, but you need to turn it over to the Department of Fish and Wildlife. They're the keeper of the turtles. Good luck catching one. We all trying to think of ways to catch them. If they're in the water, forget it. If they're on land, that's something different. You're not allowed to even touch a native turtle. We have two of them that you saw on the slideshow. But my understanding, after being part of the turtle working group in the region, is that best to, hold it at bay. Call the Fish and Wildlife folks to come by. They may direct you to take it home. But yeah, red-eared slider is a tough one. Box turtles people have as pets. And then we talked about the snapping turtle, which you got to be careful of. They can snap off your fingers. So that's what I know. Any other thoughts about turtles? Alexis, do you know differently? Anybody else know differently?
I feel like this time next week I might know differently because we're hosting a turtle talk on Tuesday.
Perfect. Ask him that question and get back to me. So don't tell lies. I hate to tell lies. Well, no, he was totally wrong. Cool. Very nice. Yeah, I think that's the case. But who's coming to talk, mate, by the way?
Yeah, it's going to be Laura Guderian.
You should know if you like turtles. Who asked that question, by the way, Willow?
That was Derek, actually.
Oh, Derek. Yeah. So Derek, you should get that Laura's the best of the best. She'll tell you all truths about what you do if you see a non-native turtle.
Yeah. Alexis, if you want to put that information in the chat, feel free.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Thanks for the
I'd like to attend. That sounds really good.
Okay.
On similar vein, do we have native frogs? I know you talked a little bit about the bullfrog, and maybe you could talk a little bit more about their relationship with turtles here as well.
Well, bullfrogs will eat frogs too, the native frogs. And the most common one that you're hearing right now, if you have a pond or stream, well, more like a pond or a lake maybe, is the Pacific Chorus frog. They have the black stripe, they're brown or green. We have the newts, those are so cool, those reddish orangish things that just kind of float in inner space and in ponds. I think those are probably the most common. We have Western toad, which has the bumpy spots and it won't give you warts. That's a strange thought that continues today. Frogs have the smoother skin. So those are a few of the species you'll see along our waterways. Of course, frogs have to lay their eggs in the water and then they become adults. Reptiles lay on land. But yeah, bullfrogs, we eat the native frogs too. So they really are a challenge.
Mm-hmm. And do you have any advice if we find injured wildlife?
Injured wildlife. Yeah, there's got to be. Let's see, the Portland Audubon, I probably rehabilitates wildlife. Here in the Gorge, we have the Reno Wildlife Clinic in Bend. I just read an article about them. So there are folks that are licensed by the state to do that. Best not to, again, bring the animal home. Best to try to, and I'm sure there's a hotline too of folks to get. I wish I know it. Maybe someone who's on this call tonight can post that if you know it, or I'm happy to get back to the person that asked the question. Yeah, you bring an animal home and it's the good chance it's going to die. I mean, there are professionals that can help it. I mean, a lot of times animals are so bad off, something has happened, they've been attacked by a dog or something, they're not going to make it. But the rehab clinics are fantastic. And even those animals, maybe like birds that have a broken wing that can't be repaired, they will be put to good use, maybe at the Portland, the Oregon Zoo or some other place.
Awesome. Do you have any advice for how we can provide good habitat in our backyards for wildlife?
Yes, who's got the platinum backyard habitat? Did I hear that prior to the show? That's
Yeah.
the person to talk to. Yeah, with wildlife habitat, just like think like people or gardens or anything else, diversity is the key. So if you have trees, then have grass. If you have grass, then maybe a little areas of rocks for reptiles, or if you can put in a little water in your, your backyard, a little pond, a little pool, that's going to be fantastic. Different species. If you're pollinators, it's good to have species that bloom, through time versus them all blooming at once. Butterfly plants, that's a big thing these days, planting milkweed, putting up the bird and bat houses, diversifying your habitat. And you might say, wait a second, I live on a city lot in Portland or Oregon City. What's it really going to do help wildlife? Well, you'd be surprised. A lot of animals just live on a few lots that's the whole life they spend there. And if your neighbor is doing that, or if you're against this Newell Park or other places, you can increase the effectiveness of the habitat. Larger is better, but smaller isn't bad. A hummingbird, will be very happy if you have a hummingbird feeder or some nice red flowers.
Awesome. Does the chat have any more questions, or does anyone else have any kind of last comments or anything you want to talk to Bill about?
Anything you'd wish I talked about tonight that we didn't hit because of timing? Tom, was that you that has who was talking about their backyard habitat?
Yeah, it was me. Yeah. And
now's your time to boast. Come on.
well, no, I'm not boasting about my own backyard habitat, but through the certification program, I ran into a neighbor here who was very proud of her platinum status for her certified backyard habitat. And, it really led us to a nice conversation about what she was doing in order to get that certification. And I think, number one, really looking at invasives in her backyard as a threat that she can do something about. And so getting rid of the ivy, and I've seen it and I've participated in it, but invasive species, invasive plants can overwhelm our natives. But once you start to remove them, you really start to get back a lot of these natives. It doesn't take much, and they're well adapted to living in these environments. And then, we talked a lot about managing trees, and trees as habitat. You pointed out, the importance of deadwood and dead trees to wildlife. And I think, that is illustrated over and over again. If you go out and look at a log, and of course, a down log, you want to be careful as you remove it to look for any wildlife underneath. You want to put it right back and be careful not to injure anything like salamanders or anything underneath. But I think there is such a tendency for us to view, the world as a place we need to clean up. And I think we need to be very careful with that, because sure, we have areas that we like to be active in, but having little piles of brush around your yard can create really nice little habitat spaces for animals. And you mentioned red flowering currant, I think, or that's one that for me is that pink flower in spring that just says hello to the hummingbirds and draws them in. And I think the more that you modify your backyard to be friendly to wildlife, the more different kinds of wildlife will come and visit you. So, but Bill, I really wanted to say also just thank you so much. Did a great job. You're inspirational. You've got such a positive attitude and such a depth of knowledge about wildlife. So for me anyway, I can't speak for all the other guests here tonight, but you did a great job. So
thank you. It's really fun. And again, if people want to contact me, they can do that at theland@gorge.net. Yeah, Tom makes a really good point. We like open spaces. We like to cut things down and have views and stuff. But wildlife, a lot of them like just the opposite. They really like cover. They don't want to be out in the open. And so they're going to look for a thicket if the cat or the dog comes after them. And so again, you want to have some opening, but some cover, little water, food, shelter, water, food, shelter, water. Yeah. Good job. I'd love to see your neighbor's place. I bet it's an incredible little
She
walk.
invited me in, and Alexis, this is in Tryon Creek watershed. So she, yeah, we can talk offline, but she has a creek that feeds into Arnold Creek. And she did use a term that is not my favorite term when it comes to nature. She talked about a garbage creek, and it really made me sad. Like, what is a garbage creek? And, to me, any creek, any flowing water, be it intermittent, whatever, it deserves our respect, our understanding. It's a contributor to the health and the well-being of the watershed. And so she told me where she lives. So I'm going to come visit her and see her garbage creek and find out what I can do to help. But yeah, but she's right here in Tryon Creek watershed. So. Yeah.
What's the next talk? What's the next one?
Yeah, that's my next slide.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So our next talk is actually going to be next month, and it's with our very own Tom Gaskill. He's going to be talking about birds. We're very excited for that. We have actually two events that are closer. This Saturday, actually, we're having a stewardship event at the John Inskeep Environmental Learning Center. That's on the Clackamas Community College campus. And we're so excited for that. It's going to be, we're going to be mulching. We're going to be taking out invasive weeds. We're going to be planting. It's just going to be a really fun morning. And that's like the headwaters of Newell Creek. So it's a really important habitat that we're going to be taking care of. And my slides just went back again. I wonder if they'll let me. Nope. Okay. Anyways, I know it all by heart now. But April 19th, oh, and Derek actually just put the registration in the chat if anyone wants to come on Saturday. And April 19th, we're going to be doing a charity pint night at Oregon City Brewing. So if you come by, grab a drink, get some food. They just opened, or they're working currently on their big patio, so it'll be a nice outdoor space. They're going to be donating $1 for every pint of, I think, beer, but also if you just want to drink soda or anything, it's going to be a really nice evening. And then obviously, I talked about May 3rd is going to be our final Watershed Wealth webinar with Tom. So thank you, guys.
And hey, Willow, just also a clarifying point on the charity pint night is you don't have to have your pint there. So there are growlers, bombers, and a unique thing that I learned about at Oregon City Brewing called a crowler, which is an aluminum, I think it's 2 pints, and they seal it up. They have this cool machine and they seal it up right there, and then you can take it with you. And so, we want to encourage responsible drinking. So we do not want you to show up and just start downing pints thinking you're doing a great thing for us. Certainly, if you want to have one, that's fine, but you can get a growler or a crowler and still support the council. So, yeah.
I went through the chats and noticed that Anne made the obvious point that people are the most dangerous animal, and we know that to be true. But my whole point in bringing up the deer is I just wanted to turn that around, because again, most people think that it's the predators, the carnivores, that are the most dangerous to people. But in Clickitat County, where I live, there's never been an attack on a person by a mountain lion, and yet we have had, I think, 36 injuries just in the past few months with people hitting deer. So that's why I brought that up. But thank you for that comment, Ann.
You can find all of this information best through our Facebook. We are currently going through a website redesign, so our new website will be launching very shortly. So yeah, and feel free to reach out to any of us at Greater Oregon City Watershed Council and Bill as well. Can you say your email again one more time?
It is THELAND, one word, the land at Gorge, GORGE.net. And I'd love to hear from you guys anytime.
That's a
And
great
thank you
email
for coming out
address.
tonight. Really glad you got there. Looking forward to Tom's talk on the 3rd.
Awesome.
Cool. Well, thank you all for coming out, and really enjoyed this evening. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell anybody you know. Great Oregon City and Tryon Creek, these watershed councils, we are the magic. We are making it happen. So wonderful. Well, thanks all. Have a good evening.
Thank
Great.
you.
Take care.
Much.
Good job, Willow.
Sweet. I don't know why my slides kept skipping all the way through.